What's up everyone, it's Adam from FWCI Sports and Gaming, and what a week we've just had. Is NXT dead? AEW's got a new show, so much stuff going on in the world of Impact Wrestling. This is World Wrestling Straya, episode 38. Thanks for joining me, everyone. I'm going to do things a little bit differently until we find out what's going to happen with NXT and what's going on with AEW and its new show and how that's going to kind of, pan out. So we're going to jump straight into the Aussie Superstar Watch and get to some of the other highlights in the news. Rhea Ripley on Raw had a match with the Raw Women's Champion, Nikki Cross. That match would end in a no contest when Charlotte would get involved. Charlotte stood tall at the end of that match, holding the championship above her head. This does not make it any clearer who's going to win the championship at SummerSlam, but Rhea Ripley at least having a match with the champion. Indy Hartwell was involved in a bunch of segments on NXT, going on her first date with Dexter Lumis. We had Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae as the overprotective parents trying to snoop on the date. These were just fun segments. They could have been a little bit funnier, I guess, but they were great for what they were, and I'm glad to see the Index storyline continue on. Grayson Waller back on the winning track, defeating Ikemen Jiro in a rematch from their match a few weeks ago. Waller would hit the stomp for the win, and great to see Grayson Waller getting some wins again. Tenille Dashwood had a one-on-one match with Taylor Wilde this week and scored the win. After the match, Madison Rayne would come back to Impact Wrestling and attack Taylor Wilde, but Tenille Dashwood getting the dub. And NXT's announced that next week will be Duke Hudson versus Mello. Is it me you're looking for? Carmelo Hayes in the semi-finals to the NXT Breakout Tournament. The winner of this match is going to the finals to face Odyssey Jones, who defeated Trey Baxter this week on NXT to earn his spot in the finals. So big match for Duke Hudson next week. And in the Kiwi corner, we had Dakota Kai this week picking up a win over Saray. That will give Kai the opportunity to fight Raquel Gonzalez for the NXT Women's title at NXT TakeOver coming up. So great to see Dakota Kai in full heel mode, getting a big win, going on to face Raquel for the title. Thank you, Bad News Barrett. And yeah, there is some bad news this week. On Dynamite this week in the main event, Chris Jericho passed the fourth labor of Jericho and defeated Wardlow with a baseball bat shot and the Judas effect to get the win. So next week, Chris Jericho gets MJF in a one-on-one match. They have announced that Chris Jericho will not be able to use the Judas effect move, and he won't be able to have the Judas entrance with the fans. I love the fact that AEW's playing around with this whole Chris Jericho Judas entrance thing and making that a part of the storyline, but I reckon Chris Jericho's taking the win in that, and the crowd's going to be singing the Judas song loud and proud after the match. And the Good Brothers defeated the Dark Order on AEW Dynamite to retain the Impact World Tag Team titles. That's the first time the Impact World Tag titles have been defended on AEW, and it was a pretty decent match as well. So AEW Rampage debuted this week. I watched it on the Fight TV app around 11 a.m. on a Saturday, so it's a good weekend show if you do work during the week. We had a really good main event with Britt Baker retaining the women's title against Red Velvet. It was such a good match. The crowd was really into it. Britt Baker looking like an absolute star in this main event. Miro had a really entertaining match with Fuego del Sol, who was one of the lower card AEW guys who apparently is not actually signed. The stipulation on this match is that if Fuego del Sol defeated Miro, he would get an AEW contract. He didn't get the win. Miro ripped up the contract after the match, but Sammy Guevara came out with Tony Khan and they announced that Fuego del Sol is going to be signed to All Elite Wrestling. So it was a really nice moment. It looked like it was a genuine surprise to Fuego del Sol, to be completely honest. So glad to see this guy getting a bit of a break, but more luchadors to me, always a good thing. And Christian Cage defeated Kenny Omega to win the Impact World Championship, which I guess comes with the TNA title as well. It was a case of interference gone wrong as Christian hit the Unprettier directly onto the chair, absolutely killing Omega. Omega took it like an absolute champ. Christian picked up the win, so Christian will still have his AEW World Championship match with Kenny Omega at All Out, unless something changes in the next couple of weeks, but he is now scheduled to defend the Impact World Championship against the winner of this week's Better Than Baron Corbin, so let's get right to it.
Oh, Nakamura has swiped the crown again. Setting Corbin.
So this is Better Than Baron Corbin. This is the segment where we have a look at what's going on with old mate Baron Corbin because we love to hate him, and then we check out who's having a better week than him. So Baron had a bit of a weird week. He got beaten up by Kevin Owens pretty bad, but at the end of the night, he snatched Big E's Money in the Bank and then just legged it. He cheesed it out of there, and we'll have to wait and see what happens with that next week. But something tells me it's not going to be leading to him beating Roman Reigns for the Universal title. But on Impact Wrestling this week, it was Brian Myers winning a 20-man over-the-top rope battle royal for the opportunity to fight the Impact World Champion, which is now Christian Cage. Myers and Cage is going to be taking place next week at Impact Wrestling Emergence, which is going to be one of their pay-per-views. And this is a wrestler who is really deserving of a spot like this. I have grown to know a lot more about Brian Myers through listening to his podcast with Matt Cardona and Mark Sterling, the Major Wrestling Figure podcast. I've learned on there that he really is a genuine fan. He loves his ECW, he loves his TNA, and I know that TNA really holds a special spot in his heart. Maybe because it's kind of, not that it's like the follow-up to ECW or anything like that, but I don't know, it just kind of has that, you know, underdog mentality that he's clearly a fan of. So I would love to see Brian Myers win the Impact Championship from Christian Cage. If Cage is just a transitional champion, that's absolutely fine with me, but congratulations to Brian Myers on landing the big championship match. That makes you better than Baron Corbin.
Moose would love to it. Wait, what? Brian Myers, the number one contender.
So let's get to this week's You Gotta Be Joking Me, because I don't know how long this is going to take to talk about. NXT. There is a lot of news coming out of WWE that there are going to be some big changes with the NXT brand coming up in the next, I don't know, month, 2 months, not even that. Very soon. This is why we're seeing all these releases happening on the NXT brand. Bobby Fish, Bronson Reed, you know, Tyler Rust, who was, you know, in a faction the week that he was released, Leon Ruff, all these guys that have all been released recently. Basically, here's what we know. Meltzer reckons that NXT appears to be headed back to its earlier format of strictly being a development program, which Meltzer calls the Curtis Axel era. Now, Curtis Axel era, that was the game show version of NXT. I don't think they quite mean that, but I think he means, yeah, NXT had a very distinctly different vibe going on before the WWE Network came along and before, you know, things really started to kick off around 2014. Meltzer says that the aim is for NXT to go back to developing bigger and younger wrestlers with far less emphasis on top-tier match quality, where they attempt to out-indie the indies. So that sounds very prehistoric WWE thinking. They would much rather have, you know, a guy like Mason Ryan, for example, while there were Daniel Bryan and Kevin Steen and El Generico still on the indies, you know, doing their thing. So that seems like typical WWE, which I thought we were actually getting past because NXT's had these fantastic superstars like Adam Cole and Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. Not the biggest guys, but they have carved their place in history on this NXT brand. So sad to see that they're going back to that kind of thinking. So this is a little bit disturbing. Meltzer quotes a source saying that the direction is in the line of, quote, no more midgets, no one starting in their 30s. They want people that can be box office attractions and main characters. He does note that Adam Cole, should he re-sign, would be an exception to those parameters. And he's an exception to those parameters because those parameters don't make any sense in the first place. So let's have a look there. No more midgets. Now that is that's a completely backwards kind of thinking because it's not the 90s anymore. We don't have the benefit of people being all roided up and everyone's going to be this, you know, larger than life character. The wrestlers are doing a much better job as far as balancing, you know, health with the job that they're doing. So I'm not sure what they're expecting to find. A young, enormous, inexperienced dude who's a complete natural at everything, and they are expecting to just, you know, these people to be growing on trees. It doesn't make any sense with the expectation reputation that they're setting up for themselves. But this comes off as jealousy, stupidity, and just a completely insecure move by WWE. The fact that NXT has actually managed to not only survive but thrive and grow under Triple H's guidance is a testament to the fact that pro wrestling is not dead. WWE is doing its best on the main rosters to kill it and reimagine the industry in its own kind of bizarre corporate image. It is starting to become really strange, and how tone deaf WWE has been throughout this whole situation, you know, it's really disappointing. I've been a WWE fan for a long time, and they really seem to be doing their best to push their existing fans away from the product. I don't get the sense in this. I mean, sure, they've got the TV contracts, and that is now a majority of WWE's income. You know, back in the day, majority of the income came from live shows and merchandise. Now it comes from a TV studio. So there's really only one way to measure that, and that's how, you know, how does the TV studio feel about everything that's going on? And it really takes it out of the hands of people who are creative and people that have more respect for what the pro wrestling industry is and what a good wrestling promotion and a good wrestling show can achieve. And it's even more sad for the talent that are on the rosters that, you know, really are just stuck in this, you know, place where the money is great and I'm kind of living my dream, but you have to believe that 90% of them feel so creatively unfulfilled. I always found it weird when WWE would get people that were really good wrestlers and then say, all right, but now we want to remold you into our own image. You know, it's like getting Eminem into the recording studio and say, hey, Eminem, you're the greatest rapper of all time. All right, we're doing a country album and we want you to sing backup vocals. Like, why would you get that guy for that job if, you know, you want to have that much control over it? It just, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense what they're trying to do. And I honestly think WWE is staring the bull in the eyes at the moment. They are really making themselves out to be very unlikable. They're releasing talent left, right, and center. Again, I don't know if this is building up to the sale of the company. Rumors are that it's not, and this is just a part of the new strategy that they have. But between all this happening with NXT, all the other releases that are going on, the just very lackluster, you know, product on the main roster, SmackDown is okay sometimes. Raw is, you know, consistently bad, actually bad television. WWE's gotta hope they don't fly too close to the sun on this one, because, you know, 2021, social media is a thing, everybody's connected, and you've got AEW. I'm not gonna say they're breathing down WWE's neck, but at this point, with the trajectory that AEW has and the trajectory that WWE has, eventually those 2 points are going to meet, and I don't know what's gonna happen when it does, because yeah, WWE is really doing a good job of making themselves out to look like a very unlikable and cold-hearted corporation. But maybe the biggest you gotta be joking me of this whole situation is that Triple H was not consulted about any of these releases that have been happening or this new direction that NXT is supposed to be going in. It is mind-boggling what's going on at the moment. To be a fly on the wall of a conversation between Triple H and Stephanie at the moment, I mean, Vince just really seems to be, I mean, he's been out of control for a long time, and honestly, Vince McMahon is way past due as far as stepping down from the duties that he still holds, you know, very close. But Triple H has got to be seething at this whole situation, and I can only imagine that he picked up his phone that morning, looked at all the announcements and said, "You gotta be joking me!" But we can't have it, you gotta be joking me, without following it up with a bit of positivity. So let's have a look at this week's You Beauty. You Beauty! You Beauty! So AEW's second episode of Rampage airs live from Chicago next week, so it'll be on Saturday here in Australia, and they've all but said that CM Punk is coming in to AEW and will be debuting at that show. All the marketing, all the advertising, it's talking about the most must-see wrestling event of the year, and they're really building this up to be something, and everybody kind of knows and suspects that it's Punk. Nothing's been confirmed, and this is just the perfect way to build up this whole situation, because you don't get moments like this with pro wrestling much anymore, and everybody's very positive, and AEW is very much like nudge, wink, say no more, he's definitely coming in. But the fact that nothing is confirmed, they haven't come out and said, And on AEW next week, CM Punk's gonna be there, because then people will be speculating and like, oh, is he gonna do this, he's gonna do that, and overthinking it, and by the time it happens, everyone will be disappointed. They've done it the perfect way. They've basically confirmed that he's coming in. They haven't confirmed it to the point where people are getting too far ahead of themselves, but everyone is still kind of geared up and ready for that debut. So the build up to the inevitable CM Punk debut in AEW, you beauty.
Fellas, what is going on? It is the Loose Ledge, Adam Brooks here, and you are watching World Wrestling Straya. I love that name. Straya.
So no Bronson Reed Twitter check-in this week because it's the Jonah Twitter check-in. Yes, Bronson's got his Twitter handle updated and he's been tweeting a lot about Miro from AEW. He's got tweets with secret codes in it that spell out "Give me Miro." He's got the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV screen from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when Miro was on TV defending the TNT Championship. So it looks like that's who Jonah wants to get in the ring with and have a match with, Miro, and I think it's the perfect opponent, but we will talk more about Jonah later on in the show.
Watch out for the kick attack.
And it's time for Yeah Nah. This is the question segment where you guys ask me questions down in the comments. I answer it on the show, and every 2 months I give away an action figure t-shirt prize pack. There's only one Yeah Nah this week, so the odds of getting the prize are still pretty good. Here's how you enter. Subscribe to FWCI Sports and Gaming, leave a comment or question about wrestling, use the hashtag Yeah Nah TikTok, and at the end of September I'll be drawing a prize pack to win a Scarlett Basic, a Karrion Kross Elite, and a sweet World Wrestling Straya t-shirt just like this one right here. So get cracking with your hashtag YeahNahTikTok. This week's is from Patrick Roberts and he says, if Bronson Reed, so Jonah I guess we're calling him now, finds himself on Impact or AEW, who would you want to see him feud against first? So we're just talking about how Bronson wants Miro, and Miro's probably would be the ideal opponent. He's a big guy, they can have a big heavy match, and we can show that Bronson Reed, even though he's a shorter guy, he can still go up against, you know, these monsters and throw them around and, you know, really be competitive. But if Miro's off the table, Lance Archer would be another great opponent for Jonah to come into AEW and have a match against. Don't really see anyone in Impact. Moose maybe, I guess, but Lance Archer, but mainly Miro versus Jonah. That's a matchup that I'd be keen to see. Bring it! So that's going to do it this week. Thank you for joining me on World Wrestling Straya episode 38. Subscribe to this channel, FWCI Sports and Gaming, for more World Wrestling Straya and more wrestling games and more wrestling and more video games and sports and all sorts of junk coming up on here. If you love your NBA, get your weekly dose of NBA Straya with Jimmy anywhere you can get your podcasts. Jimmy's still putting out weekly episodes in the off season, so if you like your NBA and you like your Straya, go check that one out. And if you're into collecting, especially wrestling figures, check out the Wrestling with Figs podcast as well with Chris and James. You can find that anywhere you get podcasts, but feel free to check out the Figs Down Under Facebook group on Facebook as well. That's where they do a live stream of the podcast before it goes out on the feed, so plenty of fun to be had. Thanks for sticking to the end of the video, everyone, and as always, be well, stay safe, look after your friends, see you in the next video. Peace.